Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Can you hear me? Let's see if more people join this live stream. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is our first live stream, and I'm Pirzada Ishtiyaq. In this live stream, we are going to read a book named The Beneficial Message and the Definitive Proof in the Study of Theology. In this book, we will read about the Aqidah of al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah and also about the Aqidah of the deviant sects that have been in the past. So there is the author's introduction, the translator's introduction, but we will skip this and go directly to the main chapter of this book. This is the book, The Beneficial Message and the Definitive Proof in the Study of Theology. So let's start reading this book. In the name of God, most merciful, most compassionate. Praised be God, the Lord of all things, and peace and blessings be upon the messenger of God, upon his family and all his companions. Indeed, the disagreement pertaining to the knowledge of divine oneness, that is Tawheed, is mainly between three groups. They are the Asharis, Maturidis, and the Mu'tazila. In the coming chapters, these groups and others will be made known, such as the Qadariya, Jabriya, and the Karamiya. However, the difference between the Ashari and Maturidis is not theologically significant and have apparent historical reasons. Neither of these groups labeled the other as being innovative or deviating and have been mutually tolerant. However, the difference between the Ash'aris and Mu'tazila, including the remainder of the groups, that is the remainder of the groups, deviant groups that have been in the past, is vast, and the clash between them is subject to immense uproar. Now, we are going to read about Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which comprises the Ash'aris and the Maturidis. Firstly, we will begin with the Ash'aris. The Ash'aris are ascribed to Imam Abu Hassan The Ash'aris are ascribed to Imam Abi Hassan Ali ibn Ismail al-Ash'ari. His great-grandfather was Abdullah Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was born in 260 after Hijrah in Basra, according to the most evident report, and died in 324 after Hijrah. He was known to have adopted the Shafi'i madhab. Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari himself began as a Mu'tazila, growing up as a student of the famous Mu'tazila teacher Abu Ali al-Jubai, who taught him theology. He also took hadith from As-Saji, who was one of the scholars in Baghdad. Abu Hassan later disagreed with al-Jubai regarding the question of whether it is obligatory upon God to give mankind that which is best for him, which is best for them. Now, there is a footnote for this belief whether it is obligatory upon God to give mankind that which is best for them. And the footnote says the Mu'tazila assert that it is obligatory on God to act in the best interest of people or in a way that is most beneficial for them. In light of this, when Jubai was asked by Ash'ari, he was unable to solve the problem presented by Ash'ari, and this led to Ash'ari abandoning the Mu'tazila sect. Now, I do not know about this problem, about this question that Imam Ash'ari Rahimahullah asked this Mu'tazila Sheikh. Now, I'm going to read this question that Imam Ash'ari asked him. It was about three brothers. So, he asked his teacher Al-Jubai about three brothers, one evil, one good, and one child who died young. Jubai said the good brother goes to heaven. Imam Ash'ari asked him about the fate of these people. So he answered that the good brother he goes to heaven, the evil brother goes to hell, the child goes to the people of peace. It's a safe place. Imam Ash'ari he asked if the child could visit his good brother in heaven. Jubai said no, because in the Mu'tazilite view, paradise must be earned by good deeds. Al-Ashari then said, but if I had lived, I would have earned paradise too. Jubai replied that it was better the child died early before turning evil. Imam Ash'ari then asked, if God knew the child would be good and the evil brother would be bad, why favor one over the other? So this was a question that Imam Ash'ari asked him, and through this Al-Jubai was shown the absolute principles of justice and omni-goodness could not be held in tandem. So this was a question that Imam Ash'ari asked Al-Jubai. Now we are going to continue reading this book further. Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari later separated from the Sheikh and left the Mu'tazila. Following this, he ascended upon the pulpit one day at the Friday assembly prayer and called with his loudest voice, saying, whoever knows me, then you know me, and whoever does not know me, I am such and such, the son of so and so. I used to say that we will not see God in the hereafter and that people create their own actions by what they do. Now these Mu'tazilites, they did not believe in Qadar or Qadar. They said that people create their own actions. There is no intervention of the divine will. And there is a footnote on this belief of Mu'tazila. It says, these pointers mentioned by Abu Hassan are that which the Mu'tazila taught and argued. They are not the beliefs of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, as shall be discussed in detail. Then Imam Ash'ari Rahimahullah said, and I make repentance to Allah from the I'tizal. After this, he wrote a book termed Al-Mujiz, and in it he replied to the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila. He also wrote the books termed Maqalatul Islam and Al-Ibana, and stood in defense of the correct Islamic belief. Now there is a footnote on this as well. Let's read this. In recent times, there have emerged groups who aim their attacks at Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari and criticize him without justification. Such persons are not apprised of the circumstances of his time and his essential role in defending the Sunni creed. In addition, throughout history, countless illustrious scholars have adopted his teachings, such as Shaykh al-Islam, Ahmad ibn Hajar Asqalani, the mentor of Hadith scholars and author of the book Fathul Bari Bisharah Sahih al-Bukhari, which not a single Islamic scholar can dispense with. Equally, Imam Nawawi, one of the greatest scholars of Ahlus Sunnah and author of Sharah Sahih Muslim and many of the other famous works, was Ash'ari. And the master of Quranic exegesis, Imam Qurtubi, author of Al-Jami' lil-Ahkam al-Quran, was Ash'ari. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Hajar Haytami, who wrote Al-Zawajir an Iktifar al-Kabair, was Ashari. The Sheikh of Sacred Law and Hadith, Zakaria Ansari, was Ashari. Likewise, Imam Abu Bakr Bakilani, Imam Askalani, Imam Nasafi, Imam Shirbani, Imam Abu Hayyan Tawhidi, author of the Quranic commentary, were Ashari. Indeed, the most prominent of scholars who belong to the Ash'ari school have filled the earth from east to west, though it is not possible to mention their names in this one text. Now, if anybody has any questions, he can ask. Yes, brother Mujib, I am from Kashmir. I don't think anyone has any questions. So let's read this book further. Now there is supplementary notes. The fundamental principles of the Ash'ari theology that were subject to opposition from the Mu'tazila and various other sects is as follows. Number 1, the concept of God and the nature of his attributes. The Ash'aris maintain that God is one, unique and eternally existent. He is not a substance, not a body, not an accident, not limited to any direction, and does not occupy space. He possesses attributes such as knowledge, power, life, will, sight, and speech. Regarding the attributes of God, two extreme views emerged, namely the extreme attributists, the anthropomorphists, Mujassima, and the comparers, Mushabbiba. Sorry. These groups maintained that what God mentioned in the Quran, such as hands, face, legs, eyes, and sitting on the throne, must be taken in the literal corporal sense. Notions that were clearly contrary to the position of Ahlul Sunnah. Now, among us, currently, there is a group that says that we should take the what God has mentioned in Al Quran Al Kareem, that He has hands, He has face, He has legs, He has limbs, and is sitting on the throne and is in a direction. This uh, group still exists among us, but the Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is without direction. He does not possess any limbs. These are His attributes and they come in the Quran and we accept them as they are. We do not, do any further elucidation on them. Such a view of the attributes of God is pure anthropomorphism, implying God's bodily existence. With respect to the Mu'tazila, they held that God does not possess any attributes. They claimed that God is knowing through his essence and not through an attribute of knowledge. However, the Ash'aris held that God does possess attributes and that these attributes are unlike that of mankind. Now, the major distinction between us and Mu'tazila was that they said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not have any attributes. He has no attributes whatsoever. Although He knows, He is seeing, and other attributes that we Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah ascribe to Him, they did not say that these are His attributes. But God knows, but it is through His essence, and it is not an attribute. Number two is the actions of servants. The Asharis maintain that all actions, be they good or evil, are the creation of God. For God alone is the creator, and that is His prerogative. Now, prerogative means superiority, which is a quality that makes a person, sorry, a prerogative means a property, attribute, or ability which gives one a superiority or advantage over others. He said he has created all things, which is in the Quran, and actions are without doubt one of those created things. The Mu'tazila believe that the servant is the creator of his actions and believe that if God creates the action, then punishment is injustice. However, the position of Ahlus Sunnah is that whilst the action is created by God, it is the servant who chooses the act and veers towards it, and for that he is held responsible. Now, we are reading the book The Beneficial Message and the Definitive Proof in the Study of Theology, authored by Sheikh Muhammad Saleh Furfur. This is the translation by Wasim Charkawi, and he has also written notes on it. Now, we as Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created both good and evil actions, but He gave us a free will, and we with our intellect choose what we are going to do. If we do good, Allah is pleased with us, and if we do bad deeds, then that is not pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The issue of free will. On the question of free will or on the ability of man to choose and produce actions, the Asharis again opposed the extreme views and adopted the intermediary position between that held by the Jabariya and that held by the Qadariya and others respectively. On the one hand, the Jabariya claimed a pure fatalistic view that man has no choice in any matter, rather everything they contend is from God. Now, a lot of laymen still have this notion that whatever happens, it is imposed on us by God, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is a belief of Jabariya. They claimed that we are our, we are not our, sorry, we do not create our own actions, and we do not have any free choice. We do not have any choice in any matter. As a consequence, they committed the most evil acts and maintained that they were not at fault. On the other hand, on the other side of the scale, the Qadariya and Mu'tazila held that man has full power to produce an action and that he does not require any divine help. The Asharis responded to this notion saying that there is a distinction between creation, khalq, and acquisition, kasb, of an action. God, according to the Ashari, is the creator of human actions and man is the acquisitor. Actions are created by God, as the servants are not capable of creating any action. There is no creator except God, and the actions of man therefore are God's creation. Power, according to the Ashari, is either eternal, qadim, or originated, hadisa. Originated power cannot create anything. The power possessed by man is given by God, and as such, it is derived or originated. God alone creates because absolute creation is his right. God creates in man the power and ability to perform an act. He also creates in him the power to make free choice between alternatives. Man is free only in making the choice between alternatives and also in intending the particular action freely chosen. Therefore, the true position of Ahlus Sunnah is that man is the acquisitor of the act he intended, while the act itself is created by God. Now, when we intend to do something, Once we make an intention, for example, I make an intention to lift this book. This is my free will. I am lifting this book. I have made an intention. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives power to my hands that I may raise this book. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created both good and evil actions, and He gave us a choice, and with we our intentions make that choice. It is either good or it is evil. The eternality of the Quran. Let's see if you chat. Inshallah, we will read that book as well. But let's finish this book together for now. It's a very good book. I have read this book cover to cover, and I have, made the notes for important points. Now, the third point, the third distinction between us, the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and the Mu'tazila is the eternality of the Quran. The orthodox section of the Muslims, and to which the Asharis maintain, is that speech is one of God's eternal attributes, and this is according to the consensus of scholars. This being the case, the Quran is the divine speech of God. The Asharis maintain that the Quran is composed of words and sounds, but these do not inhere in the essence of God. Rather, such tools, that is, the words and sounds, have been used to facilitate the understanding of the meanings of the Quran. The Mu'tazila and a section of the Rafidites held that the Quran is created. They denied all the attributes of God, including the attribute of speech. Some of the humbly innovators, excluding Imam Ahmad and his companions, held that the Quran is composed of letters, words, and sounds which exist in the essence of God and is therefore eternal. Some even went to the extreme, stating that the cover and binding of the Quran are eternal. The Asharis replied, saying that the Quran in its meaning is uncreated and eternal, though the tools used to facilitate the understanding of such meanings, that is, the letters, words, and sounds, are created. Now, what is the belief of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah? That Quran in its meaning is uncreated. It is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the letters, the binding, the cover that are in the Quran, they are created. They are just to facilitate our understanding. They are not the eternal attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is not the eternal speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Quran in its meaning is the eternal speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the fourth distinction between us and the Mu'tazilites, the beatific vision of God. The Asharis held that seeing God in the hereafter is true for the righteous. The Mu'tazila denied the vision of God in the hereafter, as that would imply that God is a corporal body, and would demand that God be in a place, yet he has no place and is not a corporal body. They claim that if God could be seen, he must have a body, and all other bodies would be like him in respect to their corporality. This view was in contrast to that held by early Muslims, that God will be seen in the hereafter by the righteous believers. They held that whatever exists is possible to be seen. Now the Mu'tazila, they denied the vision of Allah Almighty in the hereafter altogether. They said that he cannot be seen. But what is the Aqidah of Allah Sunnah wal Jama'ah? That is, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be seen by the righteous believers in the hereafter. They maintained that whatever exists, it is possible to be seen. The fifth distinction. The Mu'tazila claim that the justice of God makes it obligatory upon him not to do anything contrary to justice and equity. It is the unanimous verdict of the Mu'tazila that the wise can only do what is beneficial and good, and that God's wisdom always keeps in view that which is beneficial for his servants. Therefore, he cannot be unkind or cruel to them. He cannot bring into effect evil deeds. He cannot renounce what is salutary and beneficial. He cannot ask his servants to do that which is impossible. The position of Ahlul Sunnah is clear in this regard, and it is as he says, he does what he likes, and he is not questioned about what he does, but they will be questioned. It is absurd to claim that God must act in a particular way in his kingdom. In saying this, it must be noted that whatever he does is full of wisdom. Now, this is also a question that the atheists ask, which we will cover inshallah when we read Islam Answers Atheism. And this belief I already told you was refuted by Imam Ashari Rahimahullah when he asked him about the questioners. When he asked the question about three brothers. Now the sixth distinction between us and the Mu'tazila. The issue of reason and revelation and the criterion of good and evil. The Asharis differ from the Mu'tazila on the question of whether reason or revelation should be basis or source of truth and reality. Their differences pertain to the question of whatever revelation or reason is more primary and essential, and in case of a conflict, whether reason or revelation is to get preference. The Mu'tazila held that reason is more fundamental and primary than revelation and is to be preferred over revelation. Now, this point I have highlighted this. I am going to read it again. The Mu'tazila held that reason is more fundamental and primary than revelation and is to be preferred over revelation. Now, the Mu'tazila, they believe that one's intellect, one's reasoning is more fundamental than and primary than the revelation. Revelation merely confirms what is accepted by reason, and if there be a conflict between the two, reason is to be preferred and revelation must be so interpreted as to be in conformity with the dictates of reason. The Asharis maintain that revelation is more primary as a source of ultimate truth and reality, and reason should merely confirm what is given by revelation. The Asharis give preference to revelation in case of a conflict between the two. The basis of the Ashari view is that Islam is based on certain fundamental principles or concepts which are incapable of rational proof. These principles must be believed on the basis of revelation. Revelation is thus the real basis of the truth and reality of these base doctrines of Islam. Reason therefore must be subordinate to revelation. Its function is to rationalize faith in the basic principles of Islam and not to question the validity or truth of the principles of Islam on the basis of revelation as embodied in the Qur'an or Sunnah. There are a few other controversial issues in which the Asharis differed from the Mu'tazila. These are, for example, the promise of reward and threat of punishment by God. The Mu'tazila hold that God is bound to fulfill his promise of reward and punishment. A right deed must therefore be rewarded and an evil deed followed by punishment. They maintain that God has made promises in the Quran and because he is just, he cannot do otherwise. That is, he cannot punish the virtuous and forgive the wrongdoer. They maintain that he does not forgive anyone who does major wrong actions if he does not repent. However, the Ashari view is that being the Almighty and absolutely free in his will, God can punish his servants even if they have not committed any sin or he may reward his servants even if they have not done any virtuous deeds. Therefore, there is nothing binding on God. It is by the inner necessity of his own nature that he fulfills his promise of reward to the virtuous. Now, this is the end of the Ashari topic. Actually, there is a line. Sorry. Let's read from There is nothing binding on God. It is by the inner necessity of his no, it is by the inner necessity of his own nature that he fulfills his promises of reward to the virtuous, and it is in his infinite mercy that he may forgive an individual despite his engagement in sins and the threats against him. This is the end of the Ashari topic. Yes, regarding the podcast, one of the scholars I messaged, he will inshallah give me dates tomorrow. He will be busy. He will be busy tomorrow. Actually, he will give me the dates day after tomorrow. So, inshallah, we will be holding our first podcast very soon. So, if anyone has any questions, or if you want me to reread this book, this topic on the Asharis, or a point, I may as well do that. Does anyone have any questions? Inshallah, we will read about the Maturidis and Imam Tahawi, rahimahullah ta'ala. And I think we will see after that if we continue this stream or not. The Maturidis. The Maturidis are ascribed to Muhammad ibn Mahmud Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, Imam of the theologians. And the name Maturud, Maturud is a name of a city in Samarkand, which is present-day Uzbekistan. He died in 333 after Hijrah, after the death of Abu Hassan al-Ashari, and he had adopted the Hanafi school of thought. Imam Maturidi rahimahullah ta'ala was not one of the followers of Imam Abu Hassan al-Ashari rahimahullah ta'ala, because Imam Maturidi was expounding the doctrine of Ahl Sunnah from Abu Hanifa and his companions well before Imam Ashari rahimahullah ta'ala. Now there is a footnote on this that says this point has been mentioned because it was assumed that Maturidi was a follower of al-Ashari on the basis that Ashari was thought to be the first to expound on the doctrines of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Additionally, Abu Muhammad Abdullah ibn Sa'd al-Qattan expounded the doctrine of the Ahlul Sunnah before al-Ashari. Abu Mansur al-Maturidi was a great devout scholar who authored many books, namely al-Maqalat, al-Tawheed, etc. Now there are supplementary notes on this. And these notes, I think, are from the translator. Let's read it. Abu Mansur al-Maturidi rahimahullah ta'ala and Abu Hassan al-Ashari rahimahullah ta'ala belonged to the same period, both striving for the same cause and objective, which was to defend the established beliefs of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah from the attack of innovators, predominantly the Mu'tazila. There were there were minor differences in their methods, though it did not generate any considerable dissimilarity in their theological teachings. For example, Ashari did not give much preference to reason in the presence of sacred texts, whereas Maturidi was more inclined to reconcile between reason and transmitted text. However, such minor differences are not theologically significant. In addition, the majority of the followers from the Hanafi school of jurisprudence have traditionally followed the Maturidi school of theology, although one third of them, along with three quarters of the Shafis, all the Malikis, and some Hanbalis adhere to the Ash'ari school. I am personally also a Hanafi, but I follow the Ash'ari school of thought. And I have a reason for that. Inshallah, when we study more, I will tell you the reason. Because we are going to, I do think read about the faith of the parents of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the future. Imam Tahawi, rahimahullah ta'ala. Abu Jafar Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Salama al-Azadi al-Hijri al-Tahawi was born at Taha, a village in Upper Egypt. His forefathers came from Yemen to Egypt and settled there after it had come under Muslim rule. There is considerable difference of opinion as to when he was born, though the most sound view is that it was in 229 or 843. He died in Egypt in 321. At-Tahawi was mainly interested in hadith and fiqh and was regarded as one of the greatest muhaddithin and jurists of his time. He began his studies according to the Shafi school under the guidance of Abu Ibrahim Ismail al-Muzani, the most celebrated pupil of Imam Shafi. He then left his school and took up the study of Hanafi law under Sheikh Abu Jafar Ahmad ibn Abi Imran. Imam Tahawi went to Syria in 268 for further studies in Hanafi law and became a pupil of Qadi Abu Khazim, and then Chief Justice of Syria. Imam Tahawi, like Maturidi, was a follower of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala in jurisprudence and in theology. He wrote a little treatise on theology, generally known as Al-Aqidat al-Tahawiyah. The importance of his creed lies in the fact that it corroborates the views of Imam Abu Hanifa, the founder of the school, that have reached us through different sources. Now, what we read in Aqidat Tahawiyah, it is also in the 6 kalimas, a summary of it actually. What we have to believe, what we have to believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and about angels and other things. But Al-Aqidat al-Tahawiyah, I think it also gives proofs as to why we believe to that. It also tells that what is necessary for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is impossible for him, and what is possible for him. The importance of his creed lies in the fact that it corroborates the views of Imam Abu Hanifa, the founder of the school, that have reached us through different sources. Imam At-Tahawi made no attempt to explain the views of the Imam or to solve the old theological problems by advancing any new arguments. His sole aim was to give a summary of the views of the Imam and to show indirectly that they were in conformity with the traditional views of the Orthodox creed. The difference between him and Al-Maturidi is quite different. Al-Maturidi was a thorough dialectician, and his main endeavor was to find out a philosophical basis for the views of the leader and to support these views by scholastic reasoning and thereby bring them closer to the views of the rationalists. At-Tahawi, a true traditionalist, did not favor any rational discussion or speculative thinking on the article of faith, but preferred to believe and accept without questioning. However, both of them belong to the same school and uphold faithfully the doctrines of their master, though they differ from each other in temperament, attitude, and trends of thought. This is also highlighted by the fact that Imam Abu Hanifa directed his movement against the Khawarij, Qadariya, Mu'tazila, Shia, Jabriya, the extreme Murjiya, and the Hashwiya, the last being a group of the Orthodox people who, under the influence of the converted Jews, Christians, and Magians, fell into gross anthropomorphism and ascribed to God all characteristics of created beings. Abu Hanifa was the first theologian among the jurists who adopted the principles and method of reasoning and applied them to a critical examination of the articles of faith and the sacred laws. It is for this reason that he and his followers were called the people of the reason and opinion. This rational spirit and philosophical attitude were more consistently maintained by al-Maturidi than by at-Tahawi. Now this is end to the topic of al-Maturidi, to the topic of the Maturidis. Now there is a topic about the Mu'tazila, the dissenters. Uh, if you want me to read this, inshallah, I will read the Mu'tazila. And if you want to end this here, we can continue tomorrow. So please tell me if we continue or we end here. Okay, inshallah, we will continue reading about al-Mu'tazila and about al-Qadariya, and there is al-Jabriya, then al-Karamiya, the Murjiya, the Shia tomorrow. So if anyone has any questions, he may ask about anything about the podcast, or if you did not understand anything that you want me to reread, I will do that as well. I do not think anybody has any questions. So let's end this live stream here. Inshallah, we will continue reading this book tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Are you talking about this live stream or the podcast we are going to hold in the future? Brother Irshad, are you talking about this live stream or the podcast we are going to hold in future? What are you asking about? Inshallah, from tomorrow, we will also add at the end, we will discuss what we read in summary. That is a good, thought. Okay, let's end this live stream here. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Also make dua for me and for Muslims around the world.